Welcome to another deep dive.
Hmm.
Today we're going behind the scenes of what looks to be a really ambitious project.
Yeah.
It's called Shades of Love, and it's a 7-part anthology
Okay.
of short films, and they're all exploring different facets of love.
I like it already.
And the interesting thing here is that all 7 films are written by the same filmmaker, Jade, who also goes by Jade.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. Having that single creative vision across all 7 films,
Mhm.
I think that provides a really unique opportunity to see a cohesive vision and distinct style that ties these very diverse stories together.
Absolutely. So before we get into the films themselves, let's talk a little bit about the man behind the vision.
Okay.
So Jade has a very impressive background. He studied at the New York Film Academy,
Wow.
and he's already making waves. He's got awards and nominations from the Kalasha Film and TV Awards, African Magic Viewers' Choice Awards.
Yeah.
He's even won the AMVCA Digital Creator Competition.
He's racking them up.
He is. And he's also been recognized by Native as one of Africa's emerging filmmakers. So this isn't just someone starting out. We're talking about a filmmaker who's already proven himself. And this anthology feels like a natural evolution of his talent.
Yeah, you start to wonder, is this going to be his breakout moment?
Right.
The project that kind of catapults him onto the international scene.
It certainly has that potential. I mean, anthologies are a really powerful format. They allow filmmakers to explore different genres, different themes, to really showcase their range.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Mm.
We're going to take a look at each of the 7 films,
Okay.
see how they connect, and hopefully give you a sense of what Jade is trying to achieve with this ambitious project.
So it's like we're getting a sneak peek into his creative process, understanding the heart and soul that he's pouring into this anthology.
And the cool thing is he's actively crowdfunding to make it all happen.
Yeah.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll know if this is something you want to be a part of and help bring to life.
I like that. Because ultimately, it's the audience that can make or break a project like this.
Yeah.
It's a chance to support a filmmaker with a very unique voice and hopefully bring these stories to the screen that might not otherwise get told.
All right, let's dive in. So first up is Litmus Sermon. And the premise alone had me hooked.
Really?
Yeah. So this film centers on a pastor named James, who's preaching redemption but secretly wrestling with his own past.
So it's a classic case of hypocrisy.
Exactly.
The man preaching forgiveness is haunted by his past sins. I've seen that before. What's interesting about this one?
Well, what's really interesting is that the film takes this familiar trope and twists it into something unexpected.
Okay, I'm listening.
So it turns out that James's past isn't just this private matter. It comes back to haunt him in the form of a former associate, Mark, who's seeking revenge. And their confrontation leads to a very tragic climax.
Oh, wow. So it's not just internal conflict. There's this external threat that forces James to really confront his past in a very public and devastating way.
Yeah, and the setting at church adds another layer of complexity.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, you have this sacred space, a symbol of forgiveness and redemption, becoming the backdrop for a story of revenge and violence.
You've got me thinking now about the contrast between appearance and reality. Even those we perceive as righteous can have demons.
It's a clever use of setting, I think, to highlight that hypocrisy and the tension between the ideals the church represents and the very human failings of those within its walls. Okay, so next up, we have Love's Premium. This one dives headfirst into the dark side of love with a story of revenge. And it features James again, but this time he's driven by grief and a thirst for justice after the murder of his pregnant girlfriend, Anne.
And I'm guessing this isn't just a random act of violence.
You guessed it.
Okay.
The film uses the thriller genre to expose the systemic exploitation of vulnerable women. And James discovers that Anne's death is part of a larger scheme orchestrated by a predatory lawyer who preys on young women for profit.
So the film takes this personal tragedy of Anne's murder and expands it into a commentary on social injustice and the abuse of power.
It raises some really important questions about who's vulnerable in our society and the systems that allow this to happen.
Yeah.
And it's a much more nuanced take on revenge than we typically see.
So what happens? How does it all play out?
Well, I bet the suspense is really cranked up as James gets closer to uncovering the truth and confronting those responsible.
I bet. It's like you can just feel the tension building.
Yeah.
As he peels back the layers of this conspiracy.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And then we have Coffin Zero.
Okay, from the title alone, this one sounds pretty intense.
It is. This one follows Odie, a killer cop, known for his ruthlessness. He's a man who lives by a strict code of justice, but his world is shattered when he ends up killing his own son, Mashwada.
What? How does that even happen?
During a confrontation with a group of young robbers.
Oh my goodness, talk about a moral dilemma.
All right.
The person who's supposed to uphold the law ends up taking the life of his own child. That's got to be just completely devastating.
It really is. It raises so many questions about the limits of duty,
Yeah.
the blurry lines between justice and vengeance, and the terrible consequences when those lines are crossed.
It sounds like this film doesn't shy away from the action either.
It doesn't. From the production notes, we're talking about a robbery,
Yeah.
a tense standoff, and then this incredibly tragic climax.
So they really set the scene using this gritty urban environment
Yes.
to reflect the rawness and intensity of this story, a world where survival often comes at a high cost and the choices characters make have irreversible consequences.
You know, it's interesting. We see love twisted by betrayal in Litmus Sermon.
Yeah.
We see it exploited in Love's Premium. And then in Coffin Zero, it becomes a casualty of this relentless pursuit of justice.
It's a powerful reminder that even the strongest of bonds can be tested and broken under extreme circumstances. And it makes you think, can Odie ever forgive himself for what he's done?
Right. And speaking of love and its complexities, the next film, Own Goal, offers a moment of respite from all these darker tales. This one is described as the most heartwarming story in the anthology.
Okay. I could use a little bit of heartwarming right about now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So this one focuses on a successful footballer named Frank.
Okay.
But what's interesting is the story isn't about the thrill of victory or the glitz and glamour of professional sports.
Gotcha.
It's a much more intimate and personal story about Frank's relationship with his mother, even though she's no longer alive.
Okay. I'm interested. Tell me more.
So the film takes place at Frank's mother's grave. He's come to share the news of his achievements, to recount his journey, and how her unwavering belief in him fueled his success.
So it's a beautiful testament to a mother's love and how it can transcend even death to inspire and guide her children.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, having a loving and supportive family can make all the difference. It's a message of hope and resilience,
Yeah.
a celebration of that enduring bond between a mother and her son.
I like that. And it's a welcome change of pace after those previous films. You
Yeah.
know, it reminds us that love can be a source of strength and healing, not just pain and conflict. You know, it's fascinating to me how these films, while they're exploring these really different scenarios, they all seem to challenge societal norms and expectations.
Yeah, you really see that in Litmus Sermon, with the pastor grappling with his past,
Right.
and in Love's Premium, where the legal system fails to protect those vulnerable women. And then there's Coffin Zero, which really throws into question that whole concept of justice. It's like Jade is using these films to spark a conversation.
Right, he's provoking thought. He's not just telling stories. And I think that's one of the things that makes this anthology so compelling.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the stories, we've talked about the filmmaker, the themes, but what about the actual production? Are there any interesting behind-the-scenes details that give us a glimpse into how these films are being made?
Well, just looking at the casting documents, it's very clear that Jade has a very keen eye for talent.
Okay.
He's assembled this cast of actors that are not only skilled, but incredibly versatile.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, some actors actually appear in multiple films,
Oh, wow.
playing completely different roles.
Interesting. So it's like he's created this mini universe within the anthology where characters and storylines might intersect in unexpected ways.
Right, it adds this layer of intrigue for the viewers. You start
Yeah.
to wonder, are these just coincidences or are there these subtle connections that tie these films together on a deeper level?
And it speaks to Jade's ability to create this collaborative environment where actors can push their boundaries, explore different facets of their craft. It's almost like a repertory company, but for film.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, let's get into some specifics. What can you tell us about the locations and the overall visual style of the films?
Well, from the production notes, we get a sense of a real mix of environments. You know, some films like Coffin Zero seem to be set in more gritty urban locations reflecting those harsh realities of the story.
Yeah.
Others, like Own Goal, might lean more towards these softer, more intimate settings, perhaps focusing more on the emotional landscape of the characters.
It's going to be interesting to see how he uses visuals to enhance the emotional impact of each film. Will he use a lot of close-ups to capture the character's inner turmoil, or will he go for those wider shots to emphasize the setting and the atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, based on his previous work, I would say he's not afraid to experiment.
Okay.
He's known for using really striking imagery, creative camera angles to tell his stories.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if he incorporates some unique visual elements to differentiate each film while maintaining a cohesive style for the overall anthology.
Interesting. And what about the crew? Are there any familiar names popping up suggesting that Jade's building a team of trusted collaborators?
Oh, definitely. You really see a sense of community emerging behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Several names reappear across different films, indicating that he's working with a core group of very talented individuals who share his vision and are committed to bringing these stories to life.
It's really heartwarming to see that kind of loyalty and shared passion in the film industry.
Right.
It's not always about the big names and the blockbuster budgets.
Right.
Sometimes it's about the small, dedicated teams who believe in the power of storytelling and are willing to pour their hearts and souls into a project.
That's right. And speaking of passion projects, let's circle back to that crowdfunding aspect. You mentioned earlier that Jade is actively seeking funding to make this anthology a reality. Can you tell us a little more about his goals and how our listeners can get involved?
Absolutely. So he's aiming to raise 1 million Kenyan shillings through Mchanga,
Okay.
which is a very popular crowdfunding platform in Kenya. It's a very easy and secure way to contribute, and every little bit helps.
And for those listening who might be interested in supporting this project, can you share the Minchanga PAYBILL number and account number so they can easily make a contribution?
Of course, the PayBill number is 8913000, and the account number is 103367.
Perfect.
And for those who prefer a more direct approach, we'll have a donation link right in our podcast bio. Just click and contribute. It's that simple.
I think it's really important to emphasize that crowdfunding isn't just about donating money. It's about becoming a part of something bigger, something meaningful. You're investing in a vision, you're supporting a filmmaker, and you're helping to bring stories to the screen that might not otherwise get told.
It's like becoming a patron of the arts, but for the 21st century.
Right.
You're directly empowering these filmmakers to create art that speaks to them, art that challenges, inspires, and entertains.
And with an anthology like Shades of Love, which promises to explore such a universal and complex theme, I think there's a real opportunity for these films to connect with audiences on a very deep and personal level.
Now, before we move on to the remaining films in the anthology, I want to touch upon something that really struck me about Jade's approach to filmmaking. It's not just about the individual projects.
Yeah.
It's about building a community.
That's a really insightful observation. I noticed that too. He seems to be very intentional about collaboration, about fostering a sense of shared purpose among the cast and crew.
Exactly. He talks about creating a space where filmmakers in Kenya can come together, share ideas, learn from each other, and ultimately elevate the art of filmmaking in the country.
Yeah.
It's like he's building a movement, not just making movies.
That really speaks volumes about his character and his commitment to something larger than himself.
Yeah.
It's not just about personal success, it's about empowering others and creating opportunities for growth and collaboration.
And it's not just talk. He's already walking the walk.
Oh, yeah.
He included a link to his previous film, Bazenga, in his production notes.
Oh, cool.
So we can actually see his work firsthand and get a sense of his style and his storytelling ability.
So we can judge for ourselves.
Exactly. And there's also a teaser for another project he's working on called Agri Warrior, which features Charlene Rudo,
Oh, wow.
who's a very prominent figure in Kenya. It seems like he's already building bridges and connecting with influential people who can help amplify his vision and his impact.
I like that.
So it's clear that Shades of Love is not just a standalone project. It's a stepping stone to something much bigger.
Yeah.
A vision that extends far beyond the screen.
And that's what makes supporting this anthology even more compelling.
Yeah.
You're not just funding a film, you're investing in a future where Kenyan filmmakers have the resources and the platform to tell their stories to the world.
All right, let's delve back into the individual films.
Okay.
We've already discussed Litmus Sermon, Love's Premium, Coffin Zero, and Own Goal. Now let's move on to Mila, which translates to culture.
Okay.
And just from that title, I have a feeling we're in for something thought-provoking.
Mila meaning culture. Oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
This film tackles some very complex themes related to cultural beliefs, societal expectations, and the consequences of transgression. And it centers on James, a pastor who's haunted by a dark secret from his past.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the secret?
An affair with his stepmother.
Wow, that's a taboo subject in so many cultures, and I imagine it creates a lot of internal conflict for James, especially given his position as a religious leader.
Absolutely. He's torn between his desire to be a good pastor, upholding the moral standards of his community, and the shame and guilt that he carries from his past actions.
So how does the film explore this internal conflict? Is it mostly through dialogue and introspection, or are there more visual metaphors at play?
Well, it seems like Jade is taking a more symbolic and visceral approach with this film.
Okay, how so?
The production notes mention a curse that's placed upon James by his enraged father, a curse that forces him to run naked through his community every night.
Wow, that's a very powerful image.
Mm.
Running naked is often associated with vulnerability, shame, and exposure. It's almost like James is being stripped bare, both physically and emotionally, forced to confront his past in a very public and humiliating way.
Exactly. And the film explores the community's reaction to James's nightly runs,
Oh, yeah.
which really speaks to the fear and judgment that can arise when societal norms are challenged. It makes you question who's truly the sinner and who's the victim in this scenario.
And it makes you think about the weight of cultural expectations and how they can sometimes suffocate individual freedom and expression. It's like Jobs is trapped between his personal desires and the dictates of his culture.
And the fact that this story is set within a religious context adds another layer of complexity.
Of course.
We often turn to religion for guidance and forgiveness, but what happens when the very institutions that are supposed to offer redemption become these instruments of punishment and shame?
Mila sounds like a really challenging and thought-provoking film that delves into the dark underbelly of cultural norms and the complexities of guilt, redemption, and societal judgment. I'm curious to see how audiences will respond to such a raw and unflinching exploration of these themes.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a film that will stay with you long after the credits roll, leaving you pondering that intricate interplay between individual choices and societal pressures.
So from the weight of cultural expectations, we move to the stormy terrain of romantic relationships with Nairobi Bitch, a film that explores betrayal, revenge, and the complexities of female friendships.
Okay, this one has all the makings of a really gripping drama.
I agree.
It centers on Muthoni, a woman who returns home after working abroad, eager to surprise her boyfriend James. But instead of a joyous reunion, she walks in on him with her best friend Nasenya.
Ouch. That's a classic betrayal scenario.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine the emotional roller coaster Muthoni goes through in that moment.
Mhm.
The shock, the disbelief, the anger, the hurt, it's all there, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the film really digs into the complexities of those emotions. It's not just about the betrayal itself, it's about that shattered trust,
Yeah.
the sense of being utterly blindsided by someone you love and depended on.
And it explores the unique dynamics of female friendships,
Right.
which can be incredibly strong and supportive,
Yes.
but also incredibly fragile when betrayal enters the picture.
Right. Muthoni's now facing a double betrayal by her lover and by her best friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's a situation that forces her to really reevaluate her entire world, her sense of self, and her place within these relationships.
So how does Muthoni respond to this devastating discovery? Does she retreat into heartbreak, or does she seek some form of retribution?
Well, from the production notes, it's clear that Jade isn't shying away from those darker impulses that can arise from betrayal.
Okay.
The film really leans into the suspense genre, building that tension as Muthoni grapples with her emotions and ultimately decides to take matters into her own hands.
Okay, that sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
What kind of revenge are we talking about here? Is it something calculated and cold, or more impulsive and emotionally driven?
That's what makes this film so intriguing. The details of Muthoni's revenge are kept very shrouded in mystery,
Mm-hmm.
leaving the audience to speculate and anticipate that shocking climax.
Okay.
But from the hints that we get in the production notes, it's safe to say that Jade isn't pulling any punches.
Oh, really?
This is a story that will stay with you long after that screen fades to black.
Wow. So we've seen love tested by hypocrisy, warped by greed, shattered by violence, and now Nairobi Bitch, it's torn apart by betrayal and fueled by a thirst for revenge.
Yeah.
It seems like Jade is really determined to explore that full spectrum of human emotions, no matter how dark or uncomfortable they may be.
And that's what makes him such a compelling filmmaker. He's not afraid to really shine a light on the messy, complicated realities of love and relationships.
Right.
He's not offering these easy answers or fairy tale endings.
Right.
He's presenting us with these raw, honest stories that force us to confront our own perceptions and biases.
And finally, we come to Haba, a film whose title translates to love,
Okay.
which after the emotional roller coaster of the previous films almost feels like a breath of fresh air.
It's very intriguing how Jade has placed this film at the very end of the anthology.
Yeah.
Almost like he's offering us a glimmer of hope after leading us through this dark and turbulent terrain of love's complexities.
So after betrayal, revenge, and heartbreak, are we finally getting a glimpse of love's redemptive power?
Well, Haba doesn't shy away from the challenges of modern relationships.
Okay.
It follows William, a very charismatic but emotionally conflicted man who bounces from one fleeting relationship to the next, leaving a trail of broken hearts in his wake.
Ah,
Uh.
so it's not necessarily a straightforward love story?
Yeah.
It seems like Jade's exploring the more ambiguous, perhaps even cynical aspects of love in the modern age.
Exactly. The film really delves into that yearning for genuine connection amidst the sea of superficial encounters.
Yeah.
It explores the emotional baggage that people carry from past experiences and how those wounds can hinder their ability to form lasting bonds.
It's a theme that resonates with so many people in today's dating culture, where swiping left and right has become the norm, and the pursuit of instant gratification often overshadows that desire for something deeper and more meaningful.
And I think that's what makes Haba so relatable. It's a story that speaks to the universal longing for love even when we've been hurt or disillusioned by past experiences.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can someone who's habitually broken hearts truly change? And can those who've been hurt by him find healing and move on?
Yeah, those are exactly the questions that Jade seems to be exploring in this film. And I have a feeling he's not going to offer any easy answers.
Right.
He's going to challenge us to look beyond those surface level judgments and consider the complexities of human behavior, the reasons why we make the choices we do, and the possibility of redemption, even in the most unlikely of circumstances.
So from the hypocrisy of Litmus Sermon to the raw revenge of Nairobi Bitch, and now to this search for genuine connection in Haba, it's clear that Jade is crafting an anthology that is both diverse and deeply human. He's not just ticking boxes.
No.
He's exploring the nuances of love in all its messy glory.
And that's what makes this project so exciting. It's a chance to witness a filmmaker who's not afraid to push boundaries, to challenge conventions, and to invite us into a world of stories that are both entertaining and thought-provoking.
And it's a chance for us as viewers and potential supporters to become a part of something special, something that has the potential to resonate far beyond the screen. We've journeyed through those dark alleys of betrayal.
We have.
We've witnessed those devastating consequences of revenge. And we've even glimpsed that possibility of redemption in a world that seems so saturated with fleeting connections.
It's been quite a ride.
Yeah. And just when you think you've seen all the shades of love that Jade has to offer, he throws in a twist.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, one that adds a whole new dimension to this anthology.
You're talking about the crowdfunding aspect.
I am.
Yeah, it's not just about asking for money. It's about inviting people to be part of this larger vision.
Exactly. Jade isn't just trying to get these 7 films made. He's aiming to create this ripple effect that extends far beyond the screen.
Right.
From what I've gathered, he sees this anthology as a catalyst for building a filmmaking community in Kenya.
That's ambitious.
It is.
But also very much needed. Imagine a space where filmmakers can collaborate, share resources, learn from each other. It could be a real game changer for the industry.
Yeah, he talks about nurturing talent, providing mentorship, creating opportunities for emerging filmmakers to showcase their work.
So it's not just about individual success.
Right.
It's about fostering that collective spirit.
Yeah.
A sense of shared purpose that elevates that entire filmmaking landscape in Kenya.
And the beauty of it is that this vision aligns perfectly with the anthology's theme of love.
Oh, how so?
It's about connection, collaboration, supporting each other's creative journeys.
Yeah, it's like a love letter to the art of filmmaking. An invitation to join a community where passion and creativity are truly celebrated.
So for those listening, if you're inspired by Jade's vision and you want to contribute to making it a reality, we encourage you to support his crowdfunding campaign.
Absolutely.
He's aiming to raise 1 million Kenyan shillings through Nchanga, and every contribution, no matter how small, brings him closer to his goal.
I love that.
The PAYBILL number is 891377, and the account number is 103367.
Okay.
You can also find a direct donation link in our podcast bio, making it incredibly easy to show your support.
And remember, it's not just about the money. It's about sending that message that you believe in his vision, in his talent, and in the power of storytelling to create positive change.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Shades of Love, I'm left with a sense of admiration for Jade's ambition and his unwavering belief in the transformative power of cinema.
He's a filmmaker who's not content with simply entertaining. He wants to inspire, provoke, and ultimately leave the world a little better than he found it.
And through his stories, his vision, and his commitment to building a community, he's well on his way to achieving that goal.
This has been more than just a deep dive into an anthology.
It really has.
It's a glimpse into the heart and mind of a filmmaker who's using his craft to make a difference.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll be talking about Jack Tufanye, or Jade, as he's known as one of the leading voices in African cinema. Someone who not only told captivating stories, but also paved the way for a whole new generation of filmmakers to shine.
And it all started with a simple idea, a passion for storytelling and a belief in the power of love to connect us all.